Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the latest episode of JKL Media, where we do TV series, movies, and books and whatnot. And this time we're talking about the Haunting of Bly Manor. We've already done the first two episodes and left us with a lot of questions, especially for our first-time viewers like Jesse. And hopefully, these next two episodes will have answered some of those questions, and of course, to raise new ones as well. The titles of these two episodes, and don't know if I mentioned it properly last time, is that each episode title is the title of a Henry James short story. Episode 3 was The Two Faces Part 1, and episode 4, The Way It Came. So, um, Karen, I'm going to give you first crack at the bat. What do you think of these two episodes?
Yeah, I love that we got some background on things. Watching this episode again, it really puts some things into perspective. I love the episode, the way it came, that deals with Edmund and Danny's relationship. That was tragic and sad and just heart-wrenching, but so well done, I thought, and explains different kinds of ghosts and hauntings in Bly Manor, that this is something that happens in real life. A haunting based on something that happened, like a PTSD flashback or something like that, was a nice change of pace in a horror movie. For her to have that epiphany at the end of the episode and to throw the glasses in the fire was so symbolic. Marks a new start for her character, I think. She was taking it in stages, moving away and getting this job and bonding with these people, and then trying to start this relationship and knowing she can't while she's still haunted by the ghost of, and I'm talking metaphorically, haunted by this episode of Edmund dying right in front of her. And so she has to do something to purge that. And I'm hoping that it goes away. I'm smiling here. But yeah, and I really liked Edmund. Part of me was incredibly sad that she couldn't have made it work with him. But again, that's the impetus for the entire story. It was just sad seeing Danny know that it was because of her that he died. And then in the other episode, dealing with Peter, getting to know him is more than interesting. He is quite the character. And also, we get to see Rebecca in that episode, which is something that we heard of in the other two episodes, this nanny that died. They didn't show the cause of whatever happened with her. We see a little bit more about the dolls, too. I think we get an overload of information in these two episodes, but they're both so well written. They give us a lot of information, and it doesn't seem like we're burdened with it. And it does leave us wanting more.
Okay. Yes, thanks for the quick thoughts.
Yeah, I'll make it up. I like them. I like great stories that give you answers yet leave you with more questions. This
hmm
series has done that for me. And I'm really satisfied with the answers I've received. I am not sure yet who I'm cheering for on this. I certainly think Owen is an interesting character. I like Danny, but the children continue to be very strange. I loved, in fact, I was worried when you pull up Netflix, it starts before you select the episode, they play a little clip.
hmm
They show the first nanny. I'm drawing a blank on her name.
Rebecca,
Yeah,
Rebecca.
yeah. I'm very confused. And then once I got in the episode, it did feel like deja vu all over again. Yes,
I love that.
I I really liked both of these episodes. I think Karen said this really well. There are many ghosts in this story, and not all of them what we would call in a regular horror movie a specter, a previous someone who is a ghost from someone that is haunting you. There are many kind of hauntings going on here, and all of them incredibly interesting.
All right, good stuff. Let's do this by the characters as we have
Okay.
been doing. We meet two new characters, Peter Quint and Rebecca Jessel. I Yeah, I'm curious, Jesse, to hear what you think of him as a character. Let's work from there.
Very swarmy, is that the right word?
Marmy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the things that confused me is the episode title, part one, but the next episode isn't part two. And I'm like, oh,
Right.
Yep.
wait.
Too, though.
Yeah, I did see that on IMDb. This is being such an efficient picking up a new shirt and bringing him hair of the dog. You've got to do this. I liked seeing this. We see the interview happening with this old haunt for us, but you realize, oh, this has happened before.
Mhm.
They've done this. I just think he's a little too slick. And I thought that even before we told that he ran off with the money. I don't know if that is actually the truth, right? Because there
Mhm.
certainly is a feeling that he may be haunting there, but smoking in the kitchen pisses me off. I saw
Yep.
that when they're tasting the cake batter. I'm like, no, you should
And he
be out
sticks his finger in the batter.
the
Gross.
and with telling the young boy, I didn't give her the flowers, right?
Yep.
So he definitely would be the before boyfriend in a Hallmark movie.
Yep.
Hey, Daisy May, don't you see that this guy is a jerk?
They live
Yeah,
in the big city. She's engaged to this guy and has to go to the small town to do something.
yeah,
And people are rooting for her to leave him
yeah,
behind
because
and go
he's
with the new
just
guy. Yeah.
horrible. Yeah. And he certainly is very handsome.
They
Uh,
are in Hallmark movies too, right? They're
yeah,
Mhm.
who's the
Becca,
other?
yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I could see her being attracted to him.
Sure.
And I also like all the different motivations on why you would take this job,
Right.
right?
Yep.
Is very interesting. I am told that I guess Flanagan said in an interview that the dollhouse is incredibly important and it could give you a lot of clues of what's going on. So far, I've not seen any of those clues. So I'm
Mm.
thinking that maybe on the day back, you guys can tell me, yes, there are clues that I'm missing. Okay.
I
And
think they're a little obtuse.
yeah,
Okay.
and I do think in the fourth episode, particularly, there's an incident where
Hmm.
the dollhouses should have
Yeah.
been pretty apparent. All right.
And Rebecca is incredibly beautiful.
So,
Mhm.
Karen, I'm interested to hear your thoughts on Peter Quint, especially as you've already watched The Haunting of Hill House, and this actor is playing such a different role.
Different, incredibly different
Yeah,
role.
yeah.
Very attractive. I find him attractive. I also find Becca attractive.
Mm-hmm.
I like a lot of the people in this episode as far as looks go.
Mm-hmm.
The minute you see him, you think, okay, what is he doing? Why is he buying this stuff? It feels like a Devil Wears Prada thing where she goes and gets all the stuff for her boss and hands it to her.
Yep.
Oh, very efficient. But he's not just an assistant. You get that from this. He sits in on the interview, offers opinions. It's almost like he's a consigliere, a confidant. I do think that his opinion is valued and he has a lot to say about Rebecca.
Yeah.
Some of that is because he thinks she'll do a good job. I love seeing his interactions with her outside the office. He's slick, he's smarmy. You get that even though you don't know all the stuff about him yet. It's very well telegraphed, but also subtle. You get the idea that he's smarmy, but you also don't know exactly how bad he is. You get a taste of that with he ran off with the money. I do think he stole money from people because the police were investigating him for that. Someone apparently has evidence that he stole money. And I think One of the really cool parts of this is that he is one of the ghosts haunting Danny. Danny sees him, but no one else does. The end of the episode where they deduce that Peter is the one calling and trying to hook back up with Rebecca was a very jarring lead into the next episode. As far as Peter goes, such a great intro to him. And you learn so much about him in that little space of time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And
he comes across as very suave and debonair, but that quickly evaporates as you see how he's manipulating Rebecca, especially with the flowers, and a pretty slick move to give them to Flora from outward appearances. But under the surface, we know that he's still giving them to Becca. I can't get over how different of a role this is for this actor compared to
Yeah.
Haunting of Hill House. And Jesse will know what we're talking about because he's seen the lady that's playing Hannah, who was in the peripheral. It's two totally different characters as well. So it's quite amazing. I loved the opening of the episode when he's getting all the stuff for Henry. They're playing Tainted Love. I thought that was great. Because if you're not on a rewatch, it'll mean more to you. But I don't think on the first time you're going, why are they playing this song? And you realize later on why.
Jesse to see Hill House. I
Yeah.
really am. That's my favorite.
Let's hear your thoughts on Rebecca.
I love her, especially how confident she is when she goes into this interview. She's not put off by anything that is said towards her. She is a strong person. She knows what she's about. She doesn't care that she has a stain on her shirt. That's just a metaphor for her personality. She says, I don't think a stain on my shirt has any bearing on how good I'd be with your kids. It just that tiny little thing gives you so much information about her that she is incredibly sure of herself and she knows who she is. We see that change a little bit because of Peter's influence, which again shows how slick he is. We see him through her as well. But I love how she bonds with Flora. You see a lot of Danny in her. The interaction in the bar was more similar to the interview, and how she bonds with Flora and how Flora takes her off on a tour. And there's a lot of parallels there. And we also see how she got the phrase perfectly
split.
Yeah, she got that from Becca.
Did that jump out at you when she said that?
I missed that.
Okay.
I think that's one of those things that I will catch if I watch this again.
Sure. But
everything's
as
if someone had been brainwashed a little bit.
Yeah. That's for me, and I don't know for you, Karen, but when Becca said that for the first time, I go, whoa.
Yeah. And that's where, she had a lot of influence on Flora, especially meeting Danny, because it was during her meet with Becca that she heard it for the first time. And then meeting Danny, it's like a parallel. She wants Danny to be the same type of nanny as Becca.
Is the phrase that Miss Jessel said, right?
Yes. She says she's not Mary Poppins.
Yeah.
She is perfectly splendid.
Yeah. Which I love. I often quote when I really like something, I will say it is the Mary Poppin of things, practically perfect in every way.
Is that it for Rebecca for you, Karen? How about you, Jesse? Anything else on Rebecca?
So Rebecca is the one that is a attorney, correct?
She wants
to be an attorney.
Barrister.
Yeah, and I always get confused because in England there's two different roles of attorneys and solicitors and barristers. Yeah, but we call them basically the same. I love her personality, her idea of I want my brains are more than between my legs. She's very strong, very determined. I did like the idea that she used her hair to cover the stain on her blouse. And then I like the scene that Peter knew his boss well enough that he was going to notice it.
Yeah.
How old are your niece and nephews? Then I expect being precious about blouses won't serve me well. The actress
Carla.
was, yeah, Carla.
Gugino.
Yeah,
Gugino.
she was in Karen Cisco, which was a TV series that
Yep.
only lasted like a half a season, but she was really wonderful in it. She was great in Watchmen. I just really like her. And the reason I'm bringing it up is that the idea that she walked the grounds of Bly for the first time, wishing she might never leave, and it turned out she never would,
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
was a
Dun dun
great
dun.
way to tell you what's happening at the same time leaving you a lot of verbs. And I can't remember which of the holiday movies I was watching, but Tainted Love was played on that one.
Okay.
And
Mm.
I thought of this scene.
Okay.
Hey, I just heard this. It's a great song, and it's a great montage of starting the episode.
It not only puts you in the mind of, oh, something bad's going to happen in this episode, but it
Mhm.
also gives you the time period
Hmm.
because this was in the 80s, right? Or 90s.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
because the
Yeah.
present day, quote unquote, is the past as well.
Yeah.
All right. Now, I just have to say, because Karen, this is what's so great about doing this podcast. Karen said something that I never made the connection of until now, but the gardener keeps on calling Danny Poppins. So she
Yep.
is
Yes.
Mary Poppins. So there's that opposite thing going on there. So that's cool. Um,
Which, by the way, I think is an absolutely practically perfect in every way nickname.
Yeah.
I think it
yeah,
can be slander, but it also can be very affectionate.
yeah.
I definitely ship these two. Yes,
Okay.
I love that she calls her Poppins.
It shows how different people see her.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Now, well, the other point that Karen that you brought up about Rebecca saying that she's a strong individual, and I agree with you. So I'm wondering the fact that she still gets seduced by Peter. What
Yeah.
how do you feel about that? Do you think that they're showing that Peter's that good at?
I do think there's definitely chemistry between people a lot of the time.
Yeah,
But I'm speaking in general, that
sure.
you're attracted to someone. And the fact that he is attracted to her as well is very seductive to her.
Hmm.
I feel like maybe she's been lonely in the past. So
Mm,
having this very attractive man interested in her, and also I think he puts across this, I see your value. He listens to her and he strengthens this kind of friendship bond with her. And that is a thing that I think she sees and says, he's not just in it for the sex, he
hmm.
likes me.
Hmm.
And that's a big thing. And that has a lot to do with Peter, that
Yep.
Peter knows how to play women. But I also think that he's attracted to her. So I think there's a kind of a
Yeah.
thing that he likes her, but there's also some sinister
Yeah.
stuff.
My read on that is like he is attracted to her, but I think he's attracted to the good things in life, period.
Yeah, definitely.
Whatever it is. So is his like I don't really think that he has true feelings for her. I don't think he's capable of true feelings. And that's what really bugs me about this character, that he can manipulate people to do things. If he's that perceptive about things, then why is he such a dick?
I
To put it
think,
bluntly.
what do you call it when people don't have feelings? It's not a psychopath, sociopath.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
he has very sociopathic tendencies, and
Yeah.
sociopaths, they think they have feelings.
Yeah.
So I do think that's a lot of his personality. He has this attraction to her and feels empathy for her and wants to learn more about her. And I think that has a lot to do with things that happen
Yep.
later on in the series. If
Yep.
does that make sense
Yep.
to you, Lou, without going too far?
Yep. Yep.
And
Okay.
I think it is, I can't remember where I first heard this, but I probably was in a Baptist church that I was attending as a child, but that evil is beautiful. If evil looked ugly, it would be easy to resist temptation. Devil, Satan,
Yep.
evil, bad choices, they are attractive. And he is attractive. I think to a certain degree, when you have a trope, there is based on truth, the idea of the charming person that later becomes an abusive partner.
Look at Bundy.
Yeah,
There are still women that are like, oh, he was so attractive. I would have gone with him too. And I think Peter is big
yeah,
part of that kind of thing.
I agree.
Mhm. Um,
I'm sorry
so
for interrupting.
no, that's fine. So let's get through the characters because we have quite a few here. So let's talk about Danny next. What do you think about Danny, especially in episode
So we
let's
find
see.
out why she's been haunted. I knew something was strange once he says we've got to get through this. But you could see there was a little bit of reluctance on her part. And you want to go, maybe it's just nervousness, but it's not. And my heart does break when they're at dinner and he's, "Phew, I thought you were trying to tell me you didn't want to get married at all." And there's this silence.
Yeah.
And then you hear
And
crickets and he
yeah,
finally
it's like,
gets,
oh my God. And what is sad is if he had not gotten out of the car, I think that he loves her enough that if he had lived, he would have helped her find a way to come out of the closet and
yep.
helped her find a life.
Sounds like
In
a
my,
Hallmark movie.
yes, my
Yep.
optimistic is that because he loves her so much, once he worked through the shock and disappointment, he would have done that.
And
But
Hmm.
he
a
does.
lot,
Go
and
ahead.
when he finds a new partner.
I don't know if either one of you watched This Is Us.
Yeah.
There is a wonderful scene where one of the characters is getting married and her ex-husband calls her and says, "On the day of our divorce, you told me it was all going to be okay, and I didn't want to hear it. And you were right. It has been all okay." It was a really satisfying moment.
See, we even have safety tips in the show for
Is she actually being haunted by a ghost, or is this all her imagination? It really doesn't matter because it's
Yep.
Mhm.
real to her.
Yep.
That's right.
It
Yeah.
doesn't matter. And I hope they don't ever answer that because it's real in her mind. And I don't think burning the glasses is going to make a difference, but I think it's a small step toward moving it. It explains so much of why when your heart is broken when she has her luggage and her future mother-in-law is, "We still love you. You're
Yep.
still part of the family. Come to dinner." And she's got everything packed and she panics because she sees the cab. Part of me thought that she had a girl in their house with her.
Mhm.
And like
Mm,
my heart breaks for Danny. It makes me want to be, because I've talked about during the first couple episodes, I didn't have anyone to cheer for.
Mhm.
This one, I do cheer for her even more.
Good.
I think also pacing is perfect. This was just deep enough into the story I thought it was really well done the way they told this.
Mhm.
This is the time of my own choosing. I
right.
will reveal. I thought this was really well done.
Good. Karen.
Danny is awesome, especially in these two episodes. We get her in the first of these two seeing Peter, and she is brave enough to go out when she doesn't think the police are doing enough. She goes out, I think, with a sword. Was it a sword that she
I
had in
thought a
her?
fire poker.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, whatever it is she goes out
Yeah.
with. That's awfully brave.
Yes.
And I think that's cool. And I love that Jamie is also out there looking for Peter because she also thinks that Danny legitimately sees Peter and that the police aren't doing enough. And I feel like that really shows how similar those two characters are in a
Yeah, and if I don't mind, we did a drive around. What else do you want from us?
Yeah.
And
yeah,
I loved the idea that they just aren't taking this serious at all.
yeah.
And they
Although
are,
well, they do.
I know.
Yeah, but he
Uh,
is a little casual about it.
yes.
And they've gone through this before, apparently. The police
Yes.
have been out looking for people.
Hmm.
I love that she goes out like that and searches, meets Jamie outside. Her whole thing with Edmund, that's his name, Edmund, so heartbreaking. And you can see where she has to leave. Every time she sees his mother, she's reminded that it's her fault that Edmund is dead.
Yes.
And she carries that guilt like a weight on
Mhm.
her shoulders. And when she leaves, that weight becomes the glasses and seeing him everywhere she goes.
And that scene where they're in the receiving lines at the funeral and he's there
Behind her,
with
yeah.
his hand on her shoulder, not comforting, but haunting,
This
you
is
know?
your fault. It's your fault.
Yeah.
It's your fault. You're going to see me wherever you go because I blame you for this. And that's the feeling you get from it. And then the way she acts, people tend to say, okay, she's grieving. Let her act the way she needs to act. She doesn't want to look at herself in the mirror. I get that. So they're not going to assume that she is feeling guilty for all this. And I just love that her solution is to not tell them, but to leave because I think they would have persuaded her to stay.
And I
Undone their
think,
best.
yeah,
Yep.
you've got the guilt. And is this what you want? Should we get
Right.
into this? I do have a real life story. I shall not name any names, but someone I worked with years ago killed himself. And it
Mm,
was very sad. We were at the funeral. His wife and him were estranged at the time.
Mhm.
They had separated. And so she's there, and you just felt for her uncomfortedness
Yep.
that his family is mourning him, and it's so sad. She's always going to be the mother of their children. I felt for her because this was a horrible position for her.
sure.
I feel for Danny, right?
There's always a dichotomy between the blood relatives and the married relative, right? There's a bit
Yeah.
of a chasm there. And while they accept you as part of their family, down the road, that might not be what happens. They might not be that close anymore. I feel like that's a strange
Yes.
feeling,
Yes.
especially since she wasn't married to him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. Just adding further onto the discussion here. Again, the parallels between Danny and Edmund and Peter and Rebecca are quite interesting because I think Hannah said that Peter and Rebecca had the wrong kind of love. There's a difference
Mhm.
between love and possession,
Yeah,
and that's what we're seeing, different flavors of the same thing. I also find that I just wanted to mention that Victoria Perdetti, her acting during that reception line sequence where she's looking in the mirror at herself, like this expression on her face, she's got a really good thing with making her like her lips and that kind of. Usually the actors do it with the eyes, but she's able to do it with her lips as well, which is I find really impressive. So I thought that she shows at various points throughout these two episodes some facial expressions she's totally wrung out, like she's drifting. I think that's really well done.
and at the table with Edmund, the
Hmm.
same thing. You
Yeah,
know
like
what's
she
on her
kept,
mind there.
you could tell when she's tense under pressure because she kept on thanking the waiter for bringing the water and the wine. And she's just trying to work out how she was going to tell Edmund that she didn't want to get married. Even
I
in
did.
those two episodes with the dress fitter.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that was
A little
also another
foreshadowing there.
little.
And in the middle of the tenseness, I did feel for the waiter. Dropped the food and left
Yep.
right
Get
away.
out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yes.
All right, let's talk about Jamie because I think she had the biggest leap into the forefront of the story. We got a hint of something going on with them near the end of the second episode, but in these two, it really comes to the forefront. Um, she's very protective of Danny already, and I think she was hoping at the bonfire to help Danny release some of her ghosts. Jesse, what did you think of Jamie? I think you already mentioned that you were quite fond of her.
I really think she would be good for Danny.
Hmm.
I think there is a sweetness to her, but also a strength that could be good to share. All the scenes of the bonfire and coming up with the idea that we're burning our history, right?
Away the shadows.
We didn't talk about Danny not going to the funeral. He said it
Mhm.
was okay. At first, you're like, what's going on? I was a little confused because of the way the episode goes back and forth on time, who was talking to her. I didn't realize at first who it was. And then I go, oh, yeah, it's his mother's funeral.
Her hair was so beautiful in that scene.
Yes, she does not look like she normally does working in the garden. I'm wondering, she seems to be the most normal of the people there in Bly Manor.
Right.
She feels to me at least like the one that has the most sure of herself and knows where she needs to be.
Yeah.
So I really like her. And as I said, I'm pulling for these people to be together.
Okay. Here,
These
two
two
crazy
crazy
kids.
kids.
I love Jamie a lot. I think that she's a huge impetus in Danny's catharsis there at the end of that episode. I also like that she has a bond with Owen. Owen is also one of those normal-ish
Mhm.
characters.
And I love the scene that she's being very kind to Danny, and Danny has just enough wine to sneak a kiss. She asks, "Is this okay?"
She
Right?
knows she's vulnerable.
Yeah, and I
So,
always like when that happens. I
yeah,
always think it's a great scene.
Mm,
And then you wonder it it's so tragic. I know often ghost stories, gothic romances, gothic stories are tragedies. But the idea that will she Danny ever get happiness because of the circumstances and this haunting she has, there's a sadness to the story that I think is one of the reasons why I may not have wanted to watch this afterwards. I'm going past it, but there is this sense of this tragedy waiting to happen,
mm,
even further tragedy.
we see a lot of it already
yeah.
from Owen,
Yeah,
Danny,
yeah,
Rebecca.
Their parents. There's a lot to.
Stuff to have PTSD over, which
Mhm.
I think is a big part of Danny's thing. I think that Jamie sees that and is willing to be her confidant. I feel like she's not putting the moves on Danny, but she's leaving it open for Danny to act.
yes.
Does that make sense? She's not coming on to her, but she's
Mhm.
making it clear that she's open to whatever happens between them.
Yeah.
Her gaydar is going, I think
Yep.
this person could be someone.
Yep. She's not
Yeah,
pushing her.
yeah.
Yeah,
Because
I
Which
she knows,
makes
really
me
like
like
that.
her even more.
but knows Danny's got something going on that needs to be
Right.
Bad.
resolved
Right.
first.
And
Yes.
I'm pretty sure she has the feeling, and especially after Danny confesses about Edmund,
Hmm.
that maybe she doesn't know completely that she's
Hmm.
into girls. I just love her whole attitude. I love it when characters know who they are.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think that's
Yeah.
Jamie in a nutshell. She knows who she is.
She comes across at times like, and this is not a detraction. I just think that's the nature of the character. But she also comes off a little bit to me what Americans and Canadians think of as stereotypical Britons, and like her
Mm.
accent. And I just loved it when she said in the garden there, "Oi, dead boyfriend, give it up, mate."
Yeah,
Yeah.
I laughed out loud when she does
she's
that.
great.
That's one of
By
my
the way,
favorite lines.
I did laugh at the oi
Yeah,
because I remember the first time I read a novel set
right.
and I think that phrase is used, I'm like, what is this? They keep saying this. And I had to actually go Google what this was because I'd never read it before.
Right,
So yeah.
right. Yeah, so
Hmm.
that was pretty good.
Oi.
Okay, let's
Yes.
turn to those two strange children.
Oh my God.
Karen, what do you think? Okay.
They're crazy weird, but I do think they're protective of people because we do see that they try to shield Danny from some of the weirdness that's happening. We see that
Especially
by
Especially at the end of the fourth episode. Yeah.
Right. The specter put me in mind of The Exorcist. I think it's part 3 where they're killing K names. One of the jump scares is down the hall of a hospital. You see a white figure zip across the screen. And it was similar to that. They're definitely trying to distract her from what's going on. I feel like that's a protective thing as well as a, hey, we don't want her to know thing. They talk about the closet again, which I find interesting. We get all that stuff with the dolls. We know she had an interest in dolls already, but Rebecca also helped with that, telling her there's nothing wrong with dolls and making sure that Miles wasn't going to make fun of her for it. So they're definitely putting stuff in there. We already know the dolls are a weird part of Flora's deal. And finding them weird, I think, is the baseline for them. They're just weird.
Yeah.
And it's the same in the turn of the screw.
Yeah. And if nothing else, you could always put it down to they've lost their parents.
Yeah.
That's more than that. It is almost, when I talked about this last time, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, like the scene where I want wine, is that he seemed almost an adult.
I just want something to drink.
Yeah. Almost like that sounds like something Peter would say, right? Is Peter perhaps, is this a exorcism, right? Is it being taken over? Or did he just learn rude behavior? Because as he talked about the keys, you got to find the key. And then why did you give her the flowers? I didn't. Yeah. Right? That was like.
And Miles brought flowers to Danny.
Yes.
There's definitely some influence going on there.
It is very strange. I had a horrible nightmare. Maybe I could get some milk. I think I'd be ready to go to bed. And they are just waiting for, it's almost like a cartoon. I just got to distract you enough while this person walks behind you. They seem to be trying to help Danny that time.
Right.
But at other times, and is that the reason why they locked her into the closet? Is all of this because they are afraid? Do they know what killed their first governess, their first nanny? Was it these spirits? I don't know, but I'm at least thinking about it. They are odd children that I am hard to figure out how I feel about them.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I think that's a good take.
All right. I think we could do the next characters together because their storylines seem to be pretty interwoven right now. Owen and Hannah. What are you thinking about those two guys?
I love Owen.
Kids.
Something happens in the background of the second episode where Owen tells Hannah that he wants to take her to Paris. Now that his mother is gone, he can leave. And he knows that Hannah isn't thrilled to be there. Hannah has issues and he wants to take her to Paris. We're going to see that again. I love Owen. The one night that he decides not to go home to his mother is the night that she passes away.
Yeah.
But he also mentions at the bonfire, she was gone a long time ago. This was just me maintaining the status quo. And it's hard for your heart not to break for him because dementia and having to deal with a parent where the parent took care of you and you're not ready to take care of your parent, but there it is. It's happening. And monetarily, emotionally, and just everything. And a lot of times people with dementia are combative. Like he said, she referred to me as her husband and her brother and all the things he went through. And that's not even a forefront of the story, but you understand what he went through. It's just little plants here and there. And that I'm sad that they didn't go to the funeral because I feel like Owen needed someone there to hold his hand, but they didn't know, his mother at least. She just had a funeral back home. I get it why they didn't, but man, seeing him at the end of that third episode where he finds out the news, that hit close to home. hit me different this time, seeing
Yeah.
his emotions in that call, because I am having nightmares about that even still. And it's heart-wrenching. My father had dementia, and Sean's mother had dementia, and uh, it's something that is definitely not uncommon. Most of the population can identify with that. To me, that makes Owen's character so relatable and likable. You can see now he wants to go. He doesn't have his tether to this town and to Bly Manor anymore. He definitely is into Hannah, and Hannah's into him. He's guilty about it, but he's happy that she's in a better place now. You can see how torn he is at that moment. A lot of stuff with him in that episode.
My mother died in July, and for the past 2 years, she had been in a nursing home and she had not been herself. We've talked a lot about that in the family, about that she stopped being my mom. There is a relief, yet a sadness. We're still trying to grieve. And so I really felt the pain he was feeling. And he played this so brilliantly. I adored him on iZombie. He was great in Midnight Mass. You feel for him. It was really funny when I went to dinner with one of my best friends and he was complaining about his mom, and he says, I know now this is when you pay the card. Oh, I wish I had a mom to be irritated with. And I said, he says, though I will remind you, there were plenty of times you're irritated with your mother. And I said, no, it's good. And then about 30 minutes later, he was complaining about his brother. And I said, yeah, I wish I had a brother. He just looked at me like, because he did not see that coming. I still don't understand why she doesn't eat or drink. So we'll go with
The
it.
vampire.
Did she taste the cake?
Yeah,
It felt like she did
yeah,
because
she
I was
said
watching.
she
And
said
there's
it
always
was
a bottle of wine too at the bonfire.
yeah.
I'm really intrigued by her and him.
Mm,
Oh,
Yes, I am always anger and sad that it is okay to do unhistorical casting in modern times,
right.
right? These are brilliant actors and actresses.
you can even
Yeah,
do unhistoric casting in olden times, like
Anything.
Bridgetown or
yeah,
Bridgerton,
exactly.
Bridgerton. Although there is a precedence for that.
I love this cast. The,
or yep, yep.
yeah,
Oh, I should know that. Is it
Ryan
the guy?
Murphy.
Ryan Murphy.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love the fact that he has a cast because, as we talked about with the John Ford movie,
Yep.
John Ford had a cast of
They have a
actors
stable.
that stable.
Yep.
I love the idea that you have people that know you and you can give them different roles and different things. To get back to your question, I really thought the scenes at the bonfire were
Mhm.
very touching. These are when a series really rises to the top,
Mhm.
that you spend time listening to these people share stories,
Yeah.
and it helps you know them and understand them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's another parallel here between Danny's relationship with her mother and Owen's relationship with his mother, in that their relationships with their mothers were the opposite. Danny basically, once she lost her father, her mother never recovered, and she had to grow up on her own, and she had to support her mother. Whereas
Yes.
with Owen, it was the other way around. I just loved it when he said she had a sweet tooth and a dirty laff. That was a
It says a
fantastic touch.
lot
Yeah,
without
yeah,
saying a lot.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that was awesome. All right, I will give you guys a go around the table. I just want to list some points. I'm not going to say anything about them one way or the other, but these are just things that you might not have caught that you might want to think about going forward. The ripping of the flowers that Peter brought, Miles asked him, "Did you rip those from the garden?" So that's just something to think about. The muddy footprints, we have the source of them now. I thought it was interesting that the picture of Rebecca and Peter was done in the Forbidden Wing, and Hannah said they look like Bonnie and Clyde.
Hey, and we also learned that the Forbidden Wing isn't because of Rebecca or the parents.
No,
that it was a forbidden wing even before that.
Yeah, and then we saw Hannah in the chapel again, and she saw that crack again, but this time in the
Mhm.
chapel, not in the kitchen. And then it was gone. Peter gets chewed out by Hannah because he's seducing Rebecca in that wing, and the kids aren't being looked after. She chews him out and says, "If I could, I'd drag you into the lake." The story time that the kids did, especially Miles, about puppets and the
Yeah.
strings was interesting. What else have we got here? Oh, in episode 4, The Way It Came, they had for Daniel and Edmund's at their reception was Higher Love, which I thought
Mhm.
was Flora tells Danny her parents are not at the manor. Later on, she says dead doesn't mean gone. And Flora does that tracing in the chapel of a name, and that was Viola Lloyd. Um, what else?
She was tracing the graves.
Yeah, yeah. And this is just more, this is a straight director choice, but I thought it was really good. After the accident with Edmund, he's lying on the ground and you can see the blood pouring out. Then they cut to the bottle of wine in the tray.
Looks exactly the
Looks
same.
Dead soldier.
Yep.
So I thought that was really good. The bonfire, the term comes from the burning of bones, and they talked about burning away the shadows. I took the glasses to be the bones of Edmund. Oh, the dollhouse. Flora woke up and saw that the Danny doll wasn't in her bed.
So
It's just out of curiosity.
I probably won't get to them till Friday or Saturday.
Okay.
I've got 3 episodes I'm recording tomorrow,
Oh,
podcast, then a couple on Tuesday, and then Wednesday night is before Thanksgiving and Thanksgiving, so I don't think I'll get to it till Friday.
Yeah.
So a couple things, the bloody tracks do seem to be from this ghost. At least that's what I think they
they're
want us
mud.
to the mud. I personally think that Peter is dead, that he's been killed and they've thrown him in the lake and they've invented the story that he escaped with money.
For thought that
Yeah.
everybody else at the manor believes that he ran off with the money.
Alive.
I did notice the flower thing
Mm-hmm.
where he said, I certainly hope you didn't take the flowers. And then he actually did that himself.
Yep.
I
Yep.
did think, oh, wow, what has changed or why did he now want to do that?
Mm-hmm.
Very intrigued by this. And the little girl going very politely, please don't touch the things in my dollhouse.
Yep.
It was so
You
polite.
think?
Mm-hmm.
And would you please not touch my stuff?
Normal thing to say.
She
Way.
said it.
Yeah.
Please, I don't want to have you destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the things that when you talk of, that's what I thought of.
And there's one last factoid I forgot or observation is Henry. Why won't he come to the manor?
Yeah, that is odd. So yeah, I'm not sure on that either.
Lost his brother and sister-in-law.
Yeah, but it seems more than that. All of this seems a little out of the ordinary,
Yeah,
right?
you think he
There
would
is,
step up to look after his niece and nephew?
Yep.
you would think this would be.
How come
Yeah.
Henry's not coming?
And the idea that there's no one to say, one of my favorite statements I just loved is Penn Jillette was talking about going to see someone in the hospital, and friends come up and say, I would, but I just don't like hospitals. And Penn goes, who the F does?
Right.
Yeah, like who
Yeah.
wants to smell that?
Mhm.
Of course you don't. Buck it up and go see your friends.
Exactly.
And it hurts too much to see my nieces and to know how much.
How did they
Suck it up.
feel?
One of the things that I was really proud of, and I'm probably getting a little too personal, but when I lost my grandparents, I threw away my grief because I was worried about my mom. When I lost my stepdad and my dad, did not worry about my grief, worried about my mom. So when I lost my mom, my worry was I would still have to be there for my nieces and for the grandkids. And to a person, each of them were focused on Rita and I about, are you guys okay? This is your turn to mourn. And it really sent, because it's my turn, right? I get to do this. So I understand that it is hard losing your brother and your sister-in-law, but you've got to put that aside to be there for the kids.
Yeah.
And you mourn later. Yeah. There is very complex characters in this,
Yeah.
and that does not surprise me because it appears that's what Flanagan likes to do.
Yep.
Yep.
Similar to King, when Stephen writes a novel, the characters are always complex and
Yep.
they are not easy jigsaw puzzles you can put together. I see we've got another Holly book coming, which we will
Mhm.
have to discuss.
Since you bring up Stephen King, they both use tropes to surprise you.
Yep.
Flanagan does that as well.
Yeah.
And in his stories, that he feels like he's going to lure you into
Yeah.
thinking the story's going to go one way and it
Yeah.
going in.
Yeah, because people always criticize tropes, but tropes became tropes for a reason because they
Yep.
work.
Yep.
Yes.
But what the better craftsman will do is take a trope and twist it into a new way. All right,
Exactly.
let's go around the table then one more time.
Jesse is so insightful.
Getting Farscape.
Farscape memories, yeah. And I really wish you were going to watch these next two right away. The next two episodes lay shit on you. And I feel like it escalates all the way to the end.
Mhm. Yeah, it's a slow starter, but once it gets going, you're in for a ride.
I'm super looking for, first of all, I really want to go ahead and watch the next two, even though I know now I've seen the whole thing. Each episode has an arc. The next episode also has an arc, and the episode after that has an arc. This is what I love about Flanagan, for reals. The Edgar Allan Poe series he did, The Fall of the House of Usher, each episode was self-contained, but also part of the main arc.
Mhm.
I feel like this is like that as well, especially since he bases the whole thing on the turn of the screw, but each episode is a different Henry James story.
Mhm.
The way he makes them into a cohesive story is brilliant. He
Mhm.
did the same thing with The Fall of the House of Usher. I think Hill House was just based on one thing, right?
That's the Shirley Jackson novel. Yeah.
So seeing him do these things, Midnight Mass wasn't portioned out either, right?
Flanagan been carrying that for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I love how he does these two miniseries, Usher
Mhm.
and Bly Manor, because it really does show the talent. He's telling you a story this way and also this way. I just love that about this show, and I cannot wait to see Jesse in the next two episodes.
And to be candid, part of the reason I don't do it sooner is then I have to wait a whole week before we could talk.
Get it?
Yeah. I don't
Yeah.
do
You
it
get
sooner
it.
because I'll forget.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You could always watch it
Bunch of
twice.
toys. Okay, and I just realized there's 9 episodes, so this is going to work out well because we'll get to do the ninth one on its own and talk about the whole series. So we
Oh,
don't have to
nice.
cram 2 episodes worth in the final episode. So that will work out quite well.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. Alrighty, that's it. Been going a while. I hope everybody out there has enjoyed this conversation, and we look forward to the next one. If people wanted to find out anything about, oh, I don't know, say Bruce Springsteen, where would they go?
Yes, you can go to Jesse Jackson DFW on Twitter. I am in the middle of 30 episodes in 30 days. Each episode is focused on a separate Bruce Springsteen album. I did an episode with Robert Lawson, who has written a Little Steven book. It covers a lot of his music, not as much as a biography, but that was an interesting interview. I continue to do John Hyatt's on Perfectly Good podcast, where we're going every John Hyatt song in alphabetical order. Saw John this week in concert, and it was truly one of the best shows I've ever seen him do. It was just him. He came out, sat down on a chair, sang for about an hour and a half, telling tons of stories. It was really a lot of fun. So that's what I'm doing. And we also Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast. So I'm staying busy.
We only got paid for this.
I am currently doing something for Horseman Publishing. They're
Cool.
asking me to do Writers Bunkhouse, which is where I interview their writers. Not a paid gig yet, but I'm hoping that if it is successful, I will start getting a little money for that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Agreed. So are you?
What about you?
Yeah.
You're a good interviewer, Lou.
Thank you.
I'll put that in.
Thank you.
I haven't done a lot of it. So I am at Oliveria on social media. You can find me at most social media sites as Oliveria, Blue Sky included. Please come over to Blue Sky. It's getting really a nice place to be.
Mr. Blue Sky.
Yeah. I love that. Way up there in my
Mhm.
favorite bands. Queen,
Yes.
ELO, what else? Boston.
I
my God,
actually
they're all so good.
saw there was a podcast that said Mr. Blue Sky was scientifically designed to make you happy. I couldn't disagree with that.
Awesome. I think Build Me a Buttercup is like that as well, because that always
Yes.
makes me happy.
Yes.
Okay, so I am at Oliveria, all those places. You can write us email about Bly Manor, about Babylon 5, about really anything. And as we mentioned in the Babylon 5 podcast, World of Warcraft, and Stephen King, and Bruce Springsteen, anything you want to talk to us about. We are jklb5podcast@gmail.com. My blog is alliestuff.com with a lot of links. I also have an Amazon affiliate link on there if you want to slide me something. All right, that's me.
All right. And I'm Lou Sitzma. You can find our podcasts on Lou's Reviews on YouTube. Our flagship show is Babylon 5. We're on season 5, almost near the end. Beyond that, just very podcast that you're listening to, JKL Media, our specials of limited run series. And Bly Manor is the second of our Mike Flanagan series. The first one was Midnight Mass. We also do comic books, musics. Have we done anything else? Oh, just tune in. You'll find out a whole bunch of different stuff there for you to check out. I do interview with writers, the Writers Podcast, as well as my Stephen King podcast. You can find me on Twitter and Blue Sky at Lou W. Sitzma, SYTSMA. And I think that's everything, guys.
I think
Okay.
so.
Should there be more?
That's great. Again, everybody, have a happy Thanksgiving week this Thursday, and we'll be back next week. Till then, take care. So long, and bye-bye.
Bye.
And scene.
The proceeding has been a JKL Media production.